Welcome to Life Support Live, the weekly Star Trek show that helps you to boldly go in your own life to better... Wait, no, it helps you to better yourself. Larry, it helps us to boldly go in our own lives to better ourselves and the rest of humanity. That's it.
I'm going to get you. I guess you've worn out your copy of the sayings of Jean-Luc Picard. I'm going to have to get you a new one.
Yeah, please. I could use a new one.
Okay, yeah.
It is our Barclay episode, so I think this is
a Barclay episode, but that's what Picard said. But also, as another famous starship captain once said, wherever our mission takes us, even if it's Barclay, we will try to have a little fun along the way, which it won't be too hard today, as if it ever is.
It's
so
going to be pretty easy today. Hello, everyone. I'm psychologist Dr. Ali Matu.
That was tortured. Hey, but that's another topic for another week. And I'm Dr. Trek. He's Dr. Ali Matu. I'm Dr. Trek. One of us is a real doctor.
And one of us just got their second shot of the COVID-19 vaccine. Congratulations, Larry.
Well, it was like 2 days ago, but I re-adhered the sticker and thought I would wear it today and all that. Although I want to give, so I guess Vaughn's is marketing. I did it at a Q West lab at a Vaughn's, and they did it like a hashtag. Can you see this? So it's like hashtag I got the shot, but when you first look at it, it looks like number one got the shot.
Well, I think Riker would get the shot. I think Riker definitely.
Or Majel / Rebecca Romaine.
Or number one, yeah.
But what I thought when I first got it, first I had to say, do you have stickers? Because the first time I got a shot, they didn't have stickers. And I felt like I had voted. So the second time I went in and I did it, I came out and I went, do you guys have stickers? And she was like, oh, so this was like at 3:30. So they'd gone all day. So she gets the roll and gives me one, and I looked at it and I went, I'm sorry, this is for my number one shot. Do you have number two shot stickers?
Yeah.
And she looked at me really weird, and I went, oh, it looks like it's for your number one shot. So I wrote number two in case you're confused on there. So anyway.
Well, regardless
of
the
shot sticker saga, and I'm sticking with it. Okay.
Regardless of the saga, I am happy. I'm happy you are on your way to full vaccination there.
But
Charlotte,
our topic subject today.
Oh yeah. We should talk. Yeah, we have a show.
Been dealt with a couple of shots. It would have been much.
We are doing a show. We are not throwing away our shot. We're this week on Life Support Live. We're doing one character deep dive. Larry, I don't think we've done this since our first episode. Just diving into one character.
I was looking back. We touched on Barclay, but we did it in the guise of anxiety and fear.
Yeah.
And Saru and Barclay were kind of like the spotlight kiddos. Yeah. But I think you're good. This is going to be. I'm not going to do anything. This is just going to be me sitting back and watching a skilled and famed clinical psychologist do his thing by diagnosing someone who's not physically in his presence.
Yes, I can definitely diagnose a fictional character who I've never met but frequently watch. So this is going to be a lot of fun. So we're talking.
We have hours of video behavior with.
Yes, and I actually rewatched. I rewatched all the TNG Barclay episodes this week. I didn't watch the Voyager ones because I've seen them more recently, but I did watch all the TNG ones. So I got a lot to say.
You
Charlotte,
watched First Contact cameo?
I didn't watch it. Well, no. I said TNG, not movies. Not movies.
I said you. Yeah. Okay.
Charlotte is saying Ollie's glasses have migrated to his shirt in honor of LeVar Burton being on Reading Rainbow. I'm wearing my Reading Rainbow shirt. It's a rainbow that's reading. So there you go. There's the connection.
You need to have a Jeopardy shirt now with reading or something.
Yeah. So congrats to LeVar Burton. He's only guest hosting, but I hope it becomes permanent. Let's see. So folks, while we're getting ready to do this, let us know in the comments what's your favorite Barclay moment. There's a lot to pick from, so let us know.
What's your favorite Barclay diagnosis?
What's your favorite Barclay? That could be another one. And before we dive into Barclay, Larry, if this is the first time people here at Life Support Live, what is this grand adventure?
Well, whatever you think it is, I hope you stick around because it actually does get better usually.
Sometimes.
Oh, yeah, no, welcome. Well, yeah, once again, we kind of ham-fisted our opening there a little bit, but no, this is the show where we combine Star Trek with mental health, or we look at mental health through a Star Trek lens. What they come and they pass and go in the night, usually overlapping. We have a lot of fun. We do geek out. It's not grim and serious, but you may come away. You just might learn something, kid. You might take away something for daily life, but we have a wonderful community. If you have not stuck your toe in the water of the Lifers chat down here, you should. We have some great folks, and we are coming to you on 3 platforms. So Twitchers, we may not see you right off the bat. We're reading 2 other ones. And if you're on Facebook, you're only seeing the Facebook chat, just as an FYI. But we have a good group, and this will be a fun. I didn't mean to totally derail it going into the shot theory there, but and I know folks around the world are at different stages per country where they are. So hopefully we'll eventually get into that. But Barclay's top of mind here. We've been talking about doing this for a long time, going back and revisiting just Barclay.
Yes.
In the spotlight.
Yeah, and this is partially coming from all of you. We love to take topic requests from our awesome community here of lifers. And last week's topic of pets was a bit of a topic request. And I can't remember who brought up revisiting Barclay. I know Charlotte just said, yay.
I think the mob has, somebody may have, but yeah, the mob has.
Charlotte just wrote, so glad my man Reg is in the spotlight.
You're claiming him, huh, Charlotte? Okay.
We can give it to Charlotte. Someone brought up Barclay.
No, I mean the topic,
recently.
I mean the man. she's taken him in and adopted him, which he needs 300 years ahead of time or something. But
there you go. And Nathaniel says, I give Barclay mad plexing props. Someone brought him up.
I'm going to do that before final taping because he'll probably break them, but okay.
Whoever brought up Barclay, we sort of thought about it. And at first, Larry, I didn't want to do this. One, because we had talked just briefly about Barclay in that one episode you mentioned. But then I was also thinking, like, is there enough there to do a whole episode? And I know, that was my original thought. And then I started rewatching these episodes, and
there's plenty there.
There's so much.
I'm sorry. You call yourself a Star Trek fan, and you had to remember how much Barclay there was.
I completely underestimated not only how many Barclay episodes there are, but also how they all touch upon so many different ideas and themes that we can explore, and so much here that is relevant for 2021, and that's something we always try to do with Life Support Live is make it in some way relevant to our lifetime right now, make it helpful for us right now. So I'm really excited about this. And so many great comments are coming in. Just don't call him broccoli with a great throwback to the very first appearance that we had of Barclay. People are bringing up so many great examples, Larry. I love Barclay in Realm of Fear, particularly as the self-diagnosis. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Christoph says Pathfinder was cool, but my favorite Reg episode is the Nth Degree. I love that one. No specifications are on file for that neuroscanner. Fine, I'll give them to you, computer, you slow thing. Zahir says when he establishes contact with Voyager, his OCD, which makes him unique, ends up being an asset and causing a positive result.
In the finest tradition of research science.
Yeah, and Karen says the same thing when he finally makes contact with the Voyager. That also is just such a big moment for Voyager and for fans.
Right. It's like when the castaways get off Gilligan's Island, but before they get thrown back.
Spoilers, Larry.
It's like what? Oh, okay.
For Gilligan's Island, I don't know. No, it's I think if I correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, but when they make first contact with, well, it's not first contact. When they regain contact with Starfleet, is DS9 off air at that point?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yes.
Because it's also a big moment.
Well, I say that. If it's not, it's in the last season. I think it is. I think that
I
was.
think DS9 was off or almost off. But I remember as a fan, what made that moment also so big is we're regaining contact with Starfleet, and it felt like we were regaining contact with Starfleet because it'd been a long time since we'd been.
Yeah, sixth season. It cleared DS9's ending.
Yeah. So that was a really big moment. Linda says plexing, of course. Linda, we're gonna have a conversation
Big
about that.
sigh from this guy. Yeah. Okay.
Jared, who's back with us, not working vaccines today. Jared, great to have you here. My favorite Barclay moment is easily Pathfinder and Voyager.
And see, I think of all the Voyager moments as Barclay 2.0 or something. I always think of Barclay being helped, even though he loves to go in and muck with their. I don't know. His thing about recreating models of people. Now, the whole diagnostic tool of recreating things on a holodeck to, whether it's a piece of machinery or it's a Hakido move or it's, your favorite 15 people that you'd rather hang time with than people in reality. Okay, well, that's a little far. But he is using it to research, dealing with them and what might work with them when they contact. But I don't know. I always think of I have to stop and think of the Voyagers as, Barclay's gray top era. So but that's cool. It's cool that people enjoy some of those more than they do the other ones because he's got the emotional tie with them like he doesn't. It's like the group of people you knew when you were young think of you as a kid, and then the people you when you're an adult think of you as an adult, and there's good and bad with that. And it's like the next gen people will always see Barclay as the broccoli they knew first, but the Voyager people know him as the guy that got them home.
Right. No, it's like, do you like high school Barclay or college Barclay is kind of like. So, Larry, let's dive into it. Let's open up what?
We already have. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, let me make it official by bringing up. There we go. Let's bring it up. Let's open up the briefing room. Let's do a deeper dive. So, Larry, we were talking about this, and we're not going to dive into each and every episode because then the show would be 5 hours long. But the way we wanted to explore
so much for not enough Barclay to talk about.
I know, right? Yeah. I opened up that Wikipedia article. I was like, he's been in this many episodes? He started this season? He kept going. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of Barclay. So let's start by the way we're going to do this, folks, is we're going to explore the themes that Barclay brings up, and Larry and I identified a few different things to his themes. And the very first theme I want to talk about, Larry, is just his temperament. Temperament meaning the kind of emotions he's more likely to experience and how intensely he experiences them. Barclay is kind of the first character we see who really authentically, consistently is experiencing quite an anxious temperament.
Yeah, it's like so much for the perfect Starfleet people. That was the whole point of the character. But he's not even like, he's got the I don't know, what do you call it? The diagnosis, the disorder, whatever. He has really trouble making eye contact with people directly.
He does.
He's got that. He's got, his anxiety and his uncomfortableness is manifesting, the symptoms. I mean, if you stop and think about it, it shows how brilliant he really is that he did get that far in Starfleet without being washed out of the service for not being, it's like whatever his social anxieties and backwardness are, he overcomes it with what he's able to contribute.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And
but boy, just every day, moment to moment, when you first meet him, it's tough.
Absolutely. So going back to Hollow Pursuits, this was season 3, I think, season 3 of TNG. So
Next Generation.
Yeah, when I was watching this episode early this week, and I was so struck by a few things. One is how he really does present as someone who is really highly loaded for anxiety and
Mhm.
temperament. I'm mixing.
Insecurity and stuttering and all of that. Not stuttering as it's a neural thing, but stuttering just from the insecurity and
Yes.
lack of self confidence and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, when I and folks, I'm mixing in the counselor's log throughout this briefing room. We're not going to have a separate
Oh,
segment because
really?
there's so much.
Do you have a separate graphic for that?
I don't have a combination. What I can do is I
No, I
can put
mean,
the
just
counselor's log
look.
logo
Okay,
up.
now it's official. Now it's official.
Now
Okay.
it's official. So the counselor's log and briefing room are combined here, folks. But temperament, how intensely you feel different emotions, is largely genetic. So some people, they're born with the volume turned up on anxiety. That is Barclay, Reginald Barclay. The dial is turned up. There's some people who are born with the volume turned all the way down on anxiety. These are thrill seekers. These are the people who are more likely to jump into a situation without thinking about it. Maybe Kirk. Maybe Kirk has his anxiety turned down much lower. And then there's a lot of folks. Most folks are more in the middle. Maybe that's your Picard. Maybe that's your Janeway. And things can change it. Things can change.
Mhm.
Like trauma can make you live more at the upper end of your temperament, and some things
Right.
can make you live more at the lower end. But when we first meet Barclay, we see someone who is their temperament for anxiety. It's really up high, and because of the circumstances, they're living in the upper end of their temperament. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, Larry. He's a recent transfer from another starship. We know he's talented in was it computational engineering? It was some kind of subspecialty of engineering that I'm blanking on right now. But we know he was
Well, he was like a systems engineer. He was.
systems engineer.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So we know he's a
You're welcome.
talented systems engineer. We know he's survived in Starfleet for a long time, but for the circumstances are somehow making him really struggle here. I think, Larry, there's a lot of good reasons why. He's on the flagship of the Federation now.
Hmm.
Maybe his performance
Well, he got
anxiety.
traded. I mean, there's a little bit of that where it's like he got, handed around for. But that's kind of the other thing. He's come this far. Somebody's noticed, Dwight Schultz, right? Uh, was around 40 when he played him, which
Yeah.
means, and he's a lieutenant junior grade.
Right.
You see this.
Right. Right.
So it's like he's the world's oldest. Well, maybe I shouldn't. He's one of the world's oldest lieutenant junior grades. So it's like his formal, he's like, I'll see you, Harry Kim, and raise you 10 years. But it's like he's permanently stuck there
Yeah. Yeah.
because of his social. I'm thinking his social, and it's probably not just the prejudice of his evaluation officers. There's obviously it's affecting his. It's the fact that he's there and is, like I said, it's the fact that he's still in Starfleet after, let's say, 20 years of this shows that he's got a lot to offer. It's just painful to watch him give it. So everybody, it's prejudice or not, it's acted against him that way up
Yes.
until then.
Yes, and this is one of the reasons. There's so many
I mean,
reasons
just
why.
think the way you meet him in Hollow Pursuits, he's been that way or worse for 20 years already. It's kind of like wondering why Data suddenly started blooming when he got to the D when he'd been up and running around for 20 years after they discovered him. I always want to see, like, what? Was it just the fact that he got the paycheck of a regular on a series that Data started?
I think what we're seeing in Hollow Pursuits is definitely the big ways in which Barclay struggles. What we see, and you're so right about his career too. He does get finally the promotion to lieutenant in First Contact, and then by the time we see him in Endgame, in Voyager Endgame, he's commander. So, and that's like in the far future. He's
Well, everyone's much better off in the far future. I mean, even Harry Kim gets promoted to captain in the far future alternate universe.
Right,
So anyway.
right. But this is another way in which I really love Barclay's story. It's very true to the experience of someone who might be experiencing anxiety disorders. So it's very fair to diagnose Barclay as having social anxiety. The things I'm less comfortable diagnosing him with are I think we could have a debate about autism spectrum. It's very hard to make that diagnosis without having more data and information about him. I really think he fits. He definitely fits with social anxiety, and he has a few other anxiety disorders as well, which we'll get into. But one of the things that's so accurate about Hollow Pursuits is people who experience anxiety. Two big things happen: distress. They experience a lot of distress in different situations, which is very clear in Realm of Fear. When he's hearing the symptoms of transporter psychosis, you see how physically he's reacting, how he's sweating, how he's so aware of his physical symptoms, and how he represents a bit of this hypochondriasis or health phobia. So he experiences a lot of distress, which makes it hard for him to perform his duties, and that's impairment. His daily life is impaired by the symptoms he experiences. And the way you see it in Hollow Pursuits when we first meet him, this is what happens to all sorts of people that I've worked with, Larry. Their promotion in their careers is stalled because anxiety limits what they can do. Their performance in schools is stalled because of impairment, because
Right.
of the distress they experience from anxiety. And the other thing that I absolutely love about Hollow Pursuits is people don't understand what's happening to him.
Right.
People think he's lazy. People doing it. Riker and Geordi.
Well, they don't think he's just Looney Tunes, but yeah, people think he's sad, sick, and what's the news on Daria? Sad, sick, twisted news or whatever. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, that was a detour. But no, they think he's like, what is up with him? Oh well, at the beginning he's just this joke. Then when they go into the holodeck and see they've all been replicated with an editorial twist, one way or the other, then they're a little pissed off. But yeah, it's a range of emotions he conjures up in people, which is not what you want when you're trying to do good or just get along and get on with your life, right?
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. It's I love that they have that element in there because that is often what can happen. People who have real anxiety struggles, it might not be labeled, it might not be identified, and people can slip through the cracks. People who have anxiety can slip through the cracks. They can get ignored or neglected.
Yes. Especially if they've learned to not be verbal with their anxiety. At
Yeah.
least Barkley, he stutters and stammers and he's shy, but he does speak up. And then he leaves no doubt. But a lot of people don't even get that far. They just shut because they know. But he's had to be. He went through Star. It's not like he went through Starfleet Academy for insecure people. He went through the academy, right?
Right.
He's been socializing painfully, but he's been socializing.
Yeah, and I think his anxiety is probably made worse by like recent changes. So like being on the Enterprise now, not knowing anyone at all, the pressures of serving on that ship. I think that's all exacerbating. It's making his problems worse. But I really love that we have this storyline. And the other thing I love about this, Larry, is we're getting a character who is he's not perfect. Like everyone else on the Next Generation feels so aspirational. They're not struggling in like, yeah, sure, Data's wanting to become more human, and Riker and Troy are working on their relationship stuff, and Picard says at one point that he's a bad speller. And Tasha Yar has experienced this trauma and stuff, but and of course Worf has his identity struggles. Like I know these characters aren't perfect, of course.
Anger management, yes.
Yeah. But in their day-to-day lives, they don't struggle with their jobs. And that's something I really love about Barclay is in some ways up to this point in TNG, I know DS9 gives us a lot of characters with a lot of complexities, but up to this
I was going to say Barclay's actually like next gen with Barclay is the inversion of
Larry, I
Discovery
am
Picard. It's like
getting
we've
a
got all
little
these
bit
great
choppy
people.
on my end. I
Oh
don't know
no,
if people in our chat are experiencing this as well. Um,
I've just went choppy for you.
ooh, I can't. I see your lips moving. I see you moving. Um, but I just kind of lost your audio here now.
That's really interesting because this is like the best.
I don't know if folks are here. Folks, are you experiencing any problems here with our audio?
Related
Let
to
us
your
know in the
personality. Oh
comments.
no, related
Um,
to.
it I don't
Uh, okay.
We see him and hear him fine. We hear Larry fine. Okay, no choppiness. Okay, this is a Alimatu issue. Larry, I need you to do what's called stalling for time. Please,
Alrighty.
while I try to fix my audio. Go for it.
All right. I'm going to go. Well, this is different. Okay. Hey, then I'm gonna play a trivia with no prize. Does anyone know? I'm caught up now in the chat. I skipped chat so I could be present in current chat. Does anybody know what Reg Barclay's full name is? There are 4 components for the chat. Just put it in the chat. Anybody have a clue? And no fair peeking or look. Anybody know what Reg Barclay's full name is? And if you're really hearing me, is this a nobody can tell, or nobody's getting me in real time? Because I don't see
People can
anybody. Oh
people
well,
can hear
okay.
you.
Oh, people can hear me. Okay,
Okay.
got it.
All right, we're good. We're
Zahir's got it.
back. We're back.
Hold on, I'm doing a bit here.
Okay, do
No,
your bit. Do your bit, please. Bit away.
any. Yeah. No, Zahir got it. He was the second guess. His full name is in the script, and I think they say it, but if not, it's in the school. It's Reginald Endicott Barclay III, which gives you a whole different kind of thing there to it.
When do we first hear Endicott?
I'm trying to remember if it's in the script.
Huh.
Now, if it's not said all the way through, then that's what it is. Anyway, and we promoted it. It was in his bio screens. When you see his bio screen, it's there too.
Nice.
In at least one game, if nothing. Anyway, I was just killing time while you made yourself better.
Apparently, there's some problem with my headphones, but I switched to wired. We're good. We're back. So all I was saying, Larry, I'm sure you said some really great, insightful things.
What was Reg Barclay's actual full name? Trivia without a prize. Hashtag. Yeah.
Trivia without a prize. What every Star Trek fan is interested in. I just wanted to say, a lot of times people who are really struggling in some way get labeled as lazy, as unreliable, and I love that Star Trek gives us a character where that's what Riker and that's what Geordi are seeing. And then what does Picard do? Picard says, get to know him, understand what's going on. Like, let's help him out. And yeah, he then accidentally calls him broccoli, but he also, which Data has the best reaction to. Data's like,
No, yes.
Data's like, well, that's a very common, mispronunciation. But I love how Picard approaches this. Picard is not like, let's punish him. Picard says, let's try to understand him. And I think
that Jean-Luc guy, he's, keep an eye on him. He's real leadership potential.
He's onto something. He's got something going on. But social anxiety is not the only thing, Larry, that that Barclay struggles with, and we see him improve the next time we after Hollow Pursuits. We see him in the Nth Degree,
Right.
and here I want to talk about his relationship with Troy, if we can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know I've mentioned a lot about plexing in the past and how much, and I've also mentioned a lot about how Counselor Deanna Troy has been maybe not the best therapist in certain situations and exhibits a lot of old ideas about psychotherapy.
Is this are we merging into some second season reexamination? Is that where we are now?
Yeah, second and third, right? Um,
No, second season for us.
our second season.
For
Yes.
you.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. I think we are. Yeah. Okay. Well, I should have not had the beard season
I mean, don't
1.
worry. On my side of the screen, my half, the Kelvin universe is still only 6 hours. But on your half, apparently you're having some. You're talking about plexing and you're not running off camera, then maybe there's something going on here.
Yeah, I mean, watching these episodes, and specifically the change from Hollow Pursuits to the Nth Degree, one thing that really sticks out to me is how much of a positive relationship Barclay has with Troy. And across a lot of psychotherapy research, one of the most important variables that has been shown to help people get better is the trusting relationship they have with their therapist.
I started saying having a crush on your therapist. is,
He's got that too, and he does make a good pass. I love that. Well, he did make a pass at me last night, a good one. Yeah, that Riker, you never told us what happened, and she just kind of like walks away. It's a lovely moment. That's a great episode. But you see in the beginning of Nth Degree, there's a reference made to all the work that they have been doing together, and Barclay intentionally has signed up for these acting classes from Crusher. That is him facing his fear. That is probably some exposure therapy. And I knock plexing, which we see, plexing I'm referencing, which happens in Realm of Fear, which is later. But it's very clear that Barclay and Troy have a great trusting relationship. She's been working with him on finding ways to work through his fear. And we see in Voyager that, he's crossing some boundaries by tracking down Deanna on her vacation. We have images for all this stuff. I don't know why I haven't put up images.
I was just gonna sit here. Yeah.
He does break this boundary by finding Deanna when she's on vacation. Is Riker in that episode, but totally off screen?
No. This is Voyager. They're breaking their bank by underpaying Marina.
No, I know, but like, didn't
get shout out. They mention everybody.
He gets a shout out, right? Like,
and Geordi and they all get. Spot gets a shout out somewhere in one of these.
Shout out. They couldn't even afford Spot, Larry. Oh gosh.
No.
Well, we see that that relationship continues for years and years, and he trusts her. So whether it's plexing or Deanna pushing him to do the acting class, and then later on, it's wonderful to see a long-term positive relationship between a patient and their therapist. It's wonderful, and to get back to plexing for a moment. To give plexing, yes. Go ahead, Larry.
I was going to say, to see a long-term relationship, but also to see like improvement. Like it's not the Mr. Carlin. He's the eternal patient. I mean, might be an eternal, but you do see. I mean, he's only going to consult with her later on, like there in that era.
Right.
He's only going to call on her when he's in a crisis moment, but he's not going in every week because he's gotten better.
He's got yes, and that look that Barclay is giving Deanna in reaction to plexing is often how I've thought about plexing,
I
but
thought of you when I got that.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love this image, but
What?
but if we dive into that scene, he doesn't really hear her out. He kind of goes in, yeah, I got this problem with transportation. I don't know what to do. And then Deanna talks about desensitization,
Well,
but
he's not talking. You say transportation like getting on a bus. No, he's talking about beaming. Yeah.
he's talking
Okay.
about
Having
beaming.
his
Yeah,
molecules disassembled. Right.
right, which we should get into too.
A whole metaphysical thing. Yeah. At some point.
But it is wonderful to see that. And the other thing that I really love about the relationship is it's a good example of what's possible if good mental health is affordable and accessible. And they are in this peacekeeping armada, so it's a more military enterprise, no pun
Hmm.
intended. But it's wonderful to see what's possible if you can maintain a relationship with a mental health professional over the long term. So I wanted to say that. I wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. Well, I guess, and I sent you 2 or 3 issues of that. One is him in the back in the day in her little Enterprise lavender S-shaped curve
Oh,
couch
right. Let me find
therapy
that one.
session.
That's a great image.
I
Where
saw that and I went, wow, her they finally get her a set to be like this was like the debut. I think maybe it'd been on once before, or you saw a piece of it. Actually, when she's counseling the wife of one of the guys that dies. But yeah, it's like that's the blandest 90s looking counselor's office. Oh, Richard James.
there's a little tree in the back.
Yeah, there's very little. It's like it
Yeah.
doesn't even like give you any. If I was a kid, if I was a DP, I'm like this whole quarter of the whole delta gamma quadrant part of the screen there is all empty. What's going on? And there's another one I sent you where he's uncomfortable in his therapy session.
Yeah. Um there's oh yeah, this one.
I chalk that up more to the great acting of Dwight Schultz than I do bad counseling by Troy. But yeah, when
Yeah.
he's utilizing the couch.
I think he like leans over in pain about yeah. And
Yeah.
why I think her relationship with Barkley is so great is you see where it starts in Hollow Pursuits, where and this is also something I absolutely love about counselor Deanna Troy in Hollow Pursuits. Yeah, she has a reaction to seeing her own copy in the holodeck, but before that, she says, "We're not going to shut this program down. Let's try to understand what's happening. He might be struggling, and this is his way of coping. We need
It's a
to."
cry for help.
It's a
Yeah.
yeah. Let's not judge the behavior. Let's try to understand the behavior. And their relationship starts in not the best place, but we see how it continues to evolve over time. She is clearly a talented counselor who has been able to maintain a trusting relationship with a patient who is this is where it starts. Like he really just sees her more as a object of attraction in the holodeck as opposed to a partner
Yeah.
in his mental health journey. So
Well, or I mean, yes, he's fantasizing about her sexually or whatever, but it's like she's just one of a whole cast of characters that he can. What do you have power in your life when you feel like you have no power? But for whatever reason, he goes into his holodeck and he's like, well, there's the other one of him and Riker.
yes,
Whether it's like flirting and romancing, or whether it's yelling at authority figures
this
that you
one,
can't
this
with.
moment,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I mean, he's got a whole cast. He belittles them. He makes Wesley and Beverly, Gainsborough, and Blue Boy pie eater. I mean, whatever it is, like he's dealing with all of his insecurities by getting the upper hand with all these people because he can. It's like the out of control fantasy, but he's dealing. It's just maybe it's unhealthy dealing, but he's got the sense to do it there and not ruin real life.
Well,
It's all a big bundle.
let's talk about that. Let's talk about Barclay and the holodeck. The holodeck is a theme that keeps coming up almost in every single Barclay episode, and this is from Ship in a Bottle, I think. Um,
Yeah.
no, this might be from Hollow Pursuits. I have no idea which image.
I think it's the one where he's ending the program once and for all.
Yeah.
But it's
So
the way he turns around and he says, "Except program
9, I
40,
think.
40 yeah,
Yeah,
whatever it is.
yeah,
It's not
yeah.
47, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So I think this is probably the end of Hollow Pursuits. But the holodeck comes up in almost every Barclay episode, and it kind of becomes a theme here. And I think this is
the
a
end of Voyager.
yes, yes.
Mm.
And I think this is a wonderful thing for us to talk about and explore. And the holodeck, we can use it as a parallel for video games, for TV, for any kind of way of coping that can become an escape, that can
I
then
was gonna
maybe
say,
become a
yeah.
problem. It's also like one of the things that when I first discovered Star Trek and I started watching this, I'm like, man, if I had a holodeck, I'd be in there all the time.
Well, yeah. I mean, when Next Gen first came, I mean, we'd had the Rec Deck, right, in the animated series, and
Yeah,
if you were reading along at home, you knew that Gene wanted to have. We've talked about this before. Wanted to have it was budget and time and technology that prevented them from, but he wanted to have holographic stuff in the original series, and they even tried in the third season to go there, but they didn't have time to do it. They built a whole new rec room set thinking they were going to have something holographic part of it in it. But then he at least got it into his ideas, which made it into the blueprints, which made it into making of, and then they got it into the animated series where it didn't matter, right? And so he'd always meant for that to be around, but he always thought about it as being like mental health, as far as like reminding you of home. You could go home and not be homesick, or training or whatever. But when the show first came out and fans were hearing about this, even though it had been out there, that's the first thing everybody thought was. I mean, I remember seeing people, you'd say holodeck, and you'd be at a con, and half the fans would go, "Oh, so if you like had sex on a holodeck, your partner is a holographic. Like, would your leftovers be just there? I mean, it was like all these bizarre. Like everybody
oh
went
my
to.
god.
I could meet Einstein. I could no. It's like people wanted to know all the weird biological things.
Right,
that,
right, right.
what's
Which
the
Lower Decks
implications?
finally kind of
Yes, yeah.
gives
The whole
us some
yes.
answers to
Lower
that.
Decks gives homage to half of the things of fandom. It's less show. Yeah, that's so. What I'm saying here is your thought process, maybe on a higher plane, was not, the first idea everybody had of like, wow, what can you get? Yeah, and I would never leave.
Well, yeah, and DS9 goes more into that direction. Like Quark is less running a holo suite and more running a holo brothel. I mean, that's it. It's
Yeah.
pretty clear that that's what's going on at Quark's. But the
And yet the first time we see a holosuite in DS9, Dax is doing a 3D image puzzle. I was like, really? Really? Okay, sure.
well, this is
So much for all that pilot hype. Okay, all that new series hype.
Hollow Pursuits is really the first time that these ideas were explored.
Mm-hmm.
Geordi says to Barclay, "Look, Reg." That's like, that's always Geordi
Sorry,
and Reg.
you have to do this. Look, Reg.
Yeah, look, Reg. From my perspective, whatever you do in the holodeck is your business. There's a little bit of Shatner in there, maybe a little bit of Geordi. I don't know what that was, but I'm sticking with it. So and Geordi says, "Hey, I fell in love with someone last season in the holodeck," and Barclay goes, "Really, you did?" I think it's this unspoken thing in TNG that we only use the holodeck for very noble purposes, and like it's kind of like I got there was a great comment here from Galinda, who said, "I have fled the real world to the sanctuary of video games because radiation and super mutants are less frightening." It's like in this modern world, we can go play video games and just play Tetris or play chess, or we can play, you can play these quote unquote high, intellectual games, or we can go shoot up some zombies. A lot of us are going to go shoot up some zombies. It's a fun escape. And the way the holodeck is presented is like, Sherlock Holmes and all of this like really highbrow stuff. And we see Barkley, and I think we finally get a little glimpse of what most humans would be doing.
Chopping down everybody that opposes them in life.
A little bit, falling in love, playing out these fantasies you have, finding ways of dealing with your anger, and
More like the Voyager style of holodecks, where it's pool halls and resorts and who's my love interest this season, and yeah.
yeah, like Jared says, Star Trek Online and World of Warcraft are my drugs of choice, and yeah, finally, Barkley is giving us some of those storylines. And the other thing here I want to talk about is the beautiful way that we see this arced over the course of TNG and Voyager. Larry, I love how this plays out. He overcomes some of his holodeck struggles in TNG, and he overcomes them as he gets the support of Deanna Troi, as he forms a trusting relationship with Geordi, as he's making a difference, as he's forming some friendships, right? But then he has a bit of a relapse in Voyager. And what does in this you've got this image right over here? What he talks to Deanna about in Voyager is, look, after the Enterprise, after I wasn't on the Enterprise anymore, I was alone. I didn't have anyone.
Yeah.
And I retreated back into the holodeck because it was easier to connect with those people. Oh my goodness, what a
The big
beautiful
reset.
yeah, what a beautiful, authentic, real story of growth and of setbacks. Like that's what happens, you know. We're wired for connection with people. And when we don't have enough connection with people, we will get connection in things or in experiences. And that's what happens to Barkley when we first see him in Hollow Pursuits and we meet him again in Voyager. It's the times when he doesn't have enough connection that he's struggling with the holodeck the most.
I mean, when I was a kid, I was really, this is weird to say this now, but I remember leaving my grade school, my elementary school for junior high, and I remember knowing that it wasn't just this, kids go like, well, we're king of the school and now we'll be the underdogs, when you go from being top to that's a normal, awareness. Everybody knows that. But I remember like being sentimental and nostalgic, and I think at one point, like, I walked around my grade school like looking at things and remembering stuff from when I was a kid, and here I'm 12, and knowing that was, but yeah, it's like the big reset. And then you do the same thing, or at least in that model, we had 3 years of junior high and then start again in high school. And it's not quite as you're older, but it's still the thing of now you're on the bottom, there's people older than you. And it's a little bit that feeling. It's that reset, or when you start when you're in a job for a long time, everybody when you're older, and then you go to a new place, and you not only are learning the new job bits, but you're learning all the cast of characters around you. And it's, it's at some degree, sometimes it's more jarring than not, and depending on where you are in life. If you're younger, it might be exciting, or it may be a pain. And when you're older, you've learned more tricks of getting along, whatever. But when you're a kid and changing, or, when you're moving from school to school, that's even more disruptive because at least it's not on a plan. Which I was lucky and went to the same district all 12 years and kind of knew everything. We didn't move around. I wasn't a military brat or anything, but I just remember that feeling jarring enough to go, oh, I have to start all over again now. Even though I had people in my own grade, my own class, it's like the greater world around was going to be, somewhat different. Anyway.
Yeah.
So at that point, I totally get that. And look, he'd been passed around from ship to ship before he got to the Enterprise even. So.
Well, Larry, you mentioned your story there, and my family moved when I was in second grade. So in third grade, I started at a whole new school and didn't know anyone there. And I think I've mentioned on the show before, I was a selectively mute kid. In certain situations, I didn't talk. And in kindergarten, that was being in kindergarten. And
hold on a second. I'm just trying to fathom what that would be like.
So yeah, I know. Ooh, it's a bit like that guy over there. Um, it this is one of the reasons why I love Barclay too. Is when I first discovered Star Trek, it was like a character who was a bit more like me, who struggled with social situations. And when I finally made some friends. I don't know why
You're
I'm
really on
dipping.
it today.
I don't know why this is happening. I can't control it, Larry. Sometimes it what comes out.
Blast it, man! Get a hold of yourself.
You green-blooded hobgoblin. What was I talking about? Yeah, so when my family moved,
Yes.
I finally made some friends in first and second grade, and then we moved, and I was so alone, and I struggled so much to make new friends. And then also is around the time when I discovered Star Trek, and Star Trek for me became so much this hope that like my life could get better, and I just got deeply connected to it. And I've never
It
thought
became
about
your holodeck family.
I was gonna just say that. Like maybe, like had I not discovered Star Trek, maybe I would have felt so much more worse because it they became these people that I love, that I care about, that I see every day in syndication. I'm catching up with old episodes.
Your surrogate family.
Hey, not bad. You need a little bit more eyebrow work there to really
Oh.
pull out the Vulcan.
Oh, I wasn't trying to do Spock. I was just trying to do just
Mr.
boring
Smithers?
college. No, I was just trying to be a boring therapist, a boring Mister.
Oh, that's really
Obvious.
why this is more like evil therapist this
Okay.
wide.
Oh, okay.
I would be a little bit
Like over there.
closer. This gets a little bit more Steve Jobs, but
Okay. Well, I did see the Spock though. I did realize you went to Spock on that.
yeah,
So
yeah, I went to Spock on that as we do. Um,
sorry, I
so
went on Spock.
the holodeck stuff. I just want to say that it's incredibly authentic and real, and like we are wired for connection, and if we don't have enough of that from people, we're gonna get that from things, and that's what Barclay is showing us, and it's just. It's really authentic and well done. Larry, I was just thinking, maybe that should be a theme we explore, the holodeck, because there's a lot of interesting ethiks and questions and relationship with real
The
life and
holodeck,
entertainment.
good, bad, or indifferent. Tonight on Frontline. Yes.
And now we're doing frontline impression.
Actually, that was way too over dramatized. Frontline.
No, it's got to be way more neutral and
Frontline
bland.
would be more like this. Tonight on Frontline, the dangers of holodiction and theory.
Yes, yeah, that's
What do experts say today? Tonight on Frontline. Coming to this PBS station. Yeah, okay.
That's pretty good. And folks, we interrupt this frontline report to really ask for your donations. We've got a wonderful tote bag that we're giving away this. And now everyone who hasn't seen
Store now, so we've got live support, live stuff over
yeah,
there,
we
but
do. Now everyone outside of the United States is going, what the heck are they talking about?
Hey, let me go back to this. This is a good question, and apparently he asked it twice back at 10:42.
Yeah.
Nathaniel, in a broad way here, and back to the original Hollow Pursuits, he said, would having a diagnosis have shifted the attitude of those around Barclay from judgment to empathy? In other words, when people are just bouncing off the walls in the wild, or the other end of the telescope, once you get an official diagnosis, does that, I mean, it's better than not, but of those around, do we as humans, whether it's 21st or 24th century, just accept some of this behavior once we know there's a reason for it, or I mean, I guess
it's a great question, and Nathaniel always likes to ask questions that really push me. So I love your questions, Nathaniel. Push me in the best way possible. I mean that as a complete compliment.
actually there's a push.
Because there's layers to Nathaniel's question, and one is that I absolutely think if they saw his behavior as a symptom of a problem, that they would be much more understanding, supportive, and flexible. And this often happens in schools where teachers might see a kid as misbehaving, but then we realize that oh, no, this is because of the trauma that they've been experiencing, or this is actually because of anxiety, or this is actually because of ADHD. There are reasons why. And so that's the first part is absolutely, I think they are blaming him as an intentional choice. That like, why is he being so lazy? I think in the 24th century, Riker and Geordi's go-to should have been more empathic understanding, because that just feels like so.
Hey, trying to write Riker and Geordi was still problematic. They were just trying to make them look like real people. So give them a break.
I give him a lot of flexibility. So that's one thing. The second part to this, Nathaniel, is this gets complicated because they're serving on the Enterprise. So mental health works differently in the military. And again, Starfleet is this scientific peacekeeping armada, whatever that means. And
it's the SPA, come on.
The SPA, yeah, good old SPA. What that means is his mental health record isn't completely confidential and private to himself. That Counselor Troy is speaking to Riker as the XO who's handling all the personnel issues. They're in communication, as we see many times that Troy, and we see this really well in get ready for it, Larry. You know what episode we see this very well in?
You tell me.
Tapestry. We see Troy and Riker in Tapestry really talking about how they work through the personnel issues together, and Troy bringing up all the mental health background, and Riker bringing up all the service record background. This is how stuff works in the military. Like when you're a therapist in the military, your client is not your patient. Your client is the military. It's what's in the best interest of the entire organization. And Troy's main job is to do what's in the best interest of the Enterprise and of Starfleet. That's her number one priority. Her number one priority.
That's why she has her own special word for for number one.
So
Imzadi, yeah.
Yeah. So Nathaniel, to answer your question, yes, this would absolutely change, and it changes in classrooms. It changes on starships. It changes on cruisers in the Navy. It changes in all of these situations if there's an explanation. So that's a wonderful question. Wonderful question. Thank you for that one.
And just a shout out here. We were talking about holodecks, and Libby had said, "Boy, it would have been as she would have loved to have seen Barclay and Rom doing holodeck adventures together, like Julian and Miles."
Oh my gosh.
Charlotte said that too, but they were kind of, there was a conversation here for a while about Barclay buddies.
I would have loved to have seen that. I would have, I would have loved. I would have loved to see. Barclay gets one mention in Deep Space Nine. I think Worf and O'Brien are talking about him and reminiscing.
It's a bonding exposition moment. That's all it is.
Right.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice to see Barclay on DS9. Maybe we'll see him on Lower Decks. Who knows? But there's just a couple more things I wanted to say. One thing I wanted to say about phobias, Larry. Something else I really love about Barclay is how true his experience is to real world phobias. Most people who have a phobia actually have a fear of 2 to 3 different things. And we see with
now when you say phobia, are you talking about everybody has a thing? Yeah. But are you talking about like diagnosable?
Diagnosable.
Line?
Yeah. And what makes it diagnosable
Chronic,
is
debilitating. Whatever.
Yeah. What makes it diagnosable is it's causing impairment in your life.
Yes.
And the impairment might be just high distress. Like you can go through these situations, but it's very difficult for you, which is what we see with, this is such a great screen cap, Larry. That is just like...
I built that from scratch. That's original art, can't you tell?
That is such a great display of just fear and anxiety there. But what we see with his transporter phobia is he can get through it, but it's very difficult for him. High level of distress.
He's just a little pile of wet noodles when he's done.
Yes. Yeah. And what's very true to phobias is he goes through very great extents to try to avoid it. He takes a lot of shuttlecrafts. He tries to volunteer for missions that keep him from transporting. He does a lot of stuff, like people who have needle phobias, or people who they're very good at navigating around having to get certain shots, or they might not travel abroad because it requires them to get certain travel shots, things like that.
Yeah.
It's very true to that he can do it with a lot of distress, or he navigates around and avoids it. But a real phobia is one that causes a lot of impairment. And Barclay has a transporter phobia. He definitely has social anxiety, which is social phobia, fear of evaluation. He also, as you were mentioning, like difficulty with eye contact and really getting a lot of the physical symptoms when he's around other people. He also has his health phobia.
I was going to say he's got the hypochondria. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
very concerned about his health, his well-being. We see that as he is dealing with all of the concerns about, do I have transporter psychosis? It's a wonderful moment there of that's very true to the experience of having a phobia. Most people who have phobias have 2 to 3 different fears that they have. And the other thing, Larry, that is so great about Barclay is, like real phobias, most people only seek help for them when it's absolutely necessary and they have no other options.
Well, like he does with Beam, he's got to a point where he's been outed on his transporter psychosis,
Yes.
and he's got to go see Troy about it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah.
I've worked with a number of people. You know, my area is anxiety. This is what I do, and I've worked with a number of people who had needle phobias their whole life, and then there's some medical procedure they have to go through that requires them to get a shot, and those are the situations where they come to me for help because they've been able to navigate around this stuff for their whole lives. And the phobia display that we see with Barclay is just so true. I have 2 last things I want to say, Larry, and then I want to get into...
Well, you have to put up the Beverly Barclay slide.
Yes.
That's the special hypochondria. Yeah. No, I'm this. No, look, I'm that. Yes.
Yes. And this is...
he has his list of potential diseases he rattles through. Yeah.
And that self-diagnosing, the looking up the symptoms online. I mean, I know he's not looking them up online. He's asking the computer. But that's something that people who struggle with health phobia do all the time, is looking up symptoms on the internet. Oh my gosh, I have this. And then the very...
It could be this. They're looking at symptoms. Or it could be that.
Yep.
It could be this. Or maybe it's all 13.
Maybe it's all of those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then asking doctors for their input, discounting that input, being very vigilant of their body and of the symptoms. All of that stuff is so accurate, so well done. And the 2 other things I want to say here...
No, I think it's Malayan volcano toe fungus. Well, okay, but have you ever been to Malaya? No, but it gets around. I mean,
yeah. No, totally. That's totally it. And the other thing I want to say here is, one of the amazing things about Barclay's story is it also shows us the importance of diversity on teams. One of the most important things we can do when we're working on a team is make it okay for people with different perspectives to share their perspectives. And that sounds easy, but it's not. It's very hard to make people feel safe to share different points of view. Picard does it well in his briefings, as every captain actually, Kirk, Picard, Sisko, Janeway, and on. They all do a good job of that. But
even Jellicoe. Okay.
Oh wow, we should do Jellicoe at some point.
Yeah. I think I've had all kinds some things from people here. Somebody else. Well, anyway, I'm going to go back to the chat. I'm seeing ideas for topics just coming out of the chat today. But go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is...
team diversities. Yes.
Yeah. Just like we see in Masterpiece Society with Geordi, and how because of his visor, they were able to save this planet where he would have never existed. we similarly see with Barclay in every episode that he's in, with maybe the exception maybe the exception here is Genesis, where he causes the whole problem, the Barclay protomorphosis syndrome.
Genesis is disease, never. It is protomorphosis for. Sorry, that just
Love
popped
it.
into my mind. Could you
Love
tell?
it. I love it, Larry. I love it.
It's like silver platter from Ali here, but yes.
Yeah, I know. Wonderful, wonderfully done. That alien. Let's do a whole episode on that alien from Star Trek 3. We'll do an episode comparing him and hi everybody, it's Kermit the Frog here and Yoda. Yoda compare we must. And Grover. We'll have Grover in there too. There's a monster at the end of the book.
Oh no. Classic Sesame Street. Yeah. Okay.
Oh no. Yeah. So what I was gonna say is every episode, with the exception of probably that one episode, it's his different way of seeing the world that sort of saves the day, and
right. It's fresh eyes.
Yes.
I mean, come on. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and like every team needs people who are a little bit more anxious and a little bit less anxious. Like teams work best when there's diversity of backgrounds and experience and temperament. Like we need all of those things. You need someone who's worrying a lot more and thinking about things, and then you also need someone who's worrying a lot less. You need your McCoy, you need your Spock, you need your Kirk, you need all the different personalities for a team to really be successful. And I love that Barclay is a shining example of how the world needs all types of brains. I'm stealing from Temple Grandin's TED Talk. She's an individual with autism who's really talked about why the world needs diverse brains, and I think Barclay's a wonderful example of that. And the very last thing I want to say about Barclay, Larry, is growth and struggle. That is the human journey when it comes to mental health. We can grow and we can struggle, and he shows that. He's in some ways the most human character on Star Trek. I love this guy. I could go on and on, but I should leave it with that.
Yes, you could. No, I'm trying to stay up with, I'm way behind in the chat now. I was doing really good there for a while, but yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I tend to think about Barclay like kind of, and you see, the first contact one is kind of funny too.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that.
The first contact moment is if it's nothing more than Goober Fan who like turns into a puddle.
That look on his face.
That might be my favorite because it's so atypical. Most of the time he's frowning and uncomfortable, and here he's starstruck, right? But it was such a stretch for Dwight to get out of the standard Barclay mold and smile that big. It was a whole 2-minute scene, so they put him through the paces. But anyway, I just love that moment because he's just like fanboy there.
Totally. And Cairo says in the movie First Contact.
And before that, when he's like dodging around trying to time the moment.
Right. Like, how do I? Yeah.
Like, Geordi and Cromwell, I keep saying Cromwell. Geordi and Cochrane are having this conversation, and you see, and it's a cameo. So you're like, is that? Oh my God, that's Barclay up there. What? Oh my God. Oh, so I guess Barclay's going to be this movie's cameo. But the way he doesn't just like walk into the scene. He's like up there going, eh. He's like badly directed extra back up there, and then that's not an extra. It's stealing the whole scene. Oh wait, he's supposed to steal the scene.
Right.
It was just an awesome little. In a way, it's like my favorite of the cameos of all the cameos of the movies.
And there's a lot in First Contact too.
Because yeah.
Cairo says in the movie First Contact, he doesn't save the day. He's just there. So what I want to say to that, Cairo, is, and to you, Larry, this moment.
How do we know?
Yeah, I know.
He was spotting a defect in the coil. What if they were flying the Phoenix and the Phoenix blew up?
That's a good point. It's a
And you'd
good
have
point.
alternate timeline number 3 have to. You know.
In this moment, what I think is so cool about this moment is Barclay and Hollow Pursuits. I don't think would have been able
Multiverse.
to. Hollow Pursuits, Barclay wouldn't have been able to approach Zephram Cochrane, wouldn't have been able to introduce himself, wouldn't have been able to shake his hand. Like if you have ever
Well, much less find a lost starship in the Delta Quadrant and stand up to bureaucracy
all that
who
wonderful
didn't
stuff.
believe in his vision. Yeah.
Yeah. Him approaching Zephram Cochrane and asking to shake his hand, I think it is a sign of his progress with his social anxiety. If you have ever met a celebrity or hero, someone you've looked up to your whole life, it's a massively anxiety provoking situation. And some of us in those moments we can't approach that person. It's just too hard. It takes a lot of facing your fear to be able to do that, and he does that in the moment. I think that's a big sign of his progress in his journey in facing his anxiety, and that's what I love about that cameo.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, we're gonna go there. I'm very much aware that we've probably got all kinds of good stuff here in the chat that I haven't. We're kind of a little out of our normal structure, so although I do have a K3.
Yeah, let's actually jump into that K3. And I just, 2 last comments here. Karen says Barclay is a character that so many fans can relate to, and love that moment in First Contact. And Zahir says Reg in First Contact was probably what I look like meeting LeVar Burton. Zahir, that's probably what I look like meeting George Takei and Patrick Stewart in these moments. I'm pretty sure I was like this.
No, then you have like probably what I was, where you're trying to be. Okay, this is funny because it reminds me. This sounds like a stalker. I was trying to when I was at the same time I was getting old enough to have my own income and be in, like post college, and trying to get out. I was like, I'm finally going to meet DeForest Kelley. And every time, one time I had what's one of the common diseases you have at some point? Anyway, I was supposed to go to a con that was in, I think, Louisiana, somewhere in the South, and I was going to drive, and I got sick and couldn't go. And then I was going to see him at the con at Ultimate Fantasy, the Con of Wrath, and I totally missed the big people signing. I went to the little people signing, but and I'm like, and it was the 80s, and it's like he was physically getting smaller and smaller. Like his diameter was shrinking with every year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm never going to see him live. And finally, like the third or fourth time in a con up in Kansas City that I'd never been to before, that was
at a con.
At the con, and it was so big and it was so uncomfortably humid in this, like they have a big atrium next to the pool kind of thing, but it was huge, and you could all the rooms opened onto this thing indoors, and you could you could have put thousands of people in this thing, hundreds of people, and they were sitting the 4 or 5 guests were signing at a table, but Jimmy, Majel, and Dee all decided to walk the line instead of sit at the table because so many people were stuck in line. So they were walking a line, just signing things for people in the thing. And Dee finally came down so I finally met him. He signed my medical reference.
Oh, wow.
He signed Just an Old Country Doctor.
Oh.
Which he didn't do, he didn't personalize later on. But it's like, So anyway, but in that moment, and then later on, and the last time I saw him one-to-one is the picture I have where I'm interviewing him at the 30th convention in '96, so like 12 years later. But that was a moment where I look back now, it's like I was always good with celebrities because it was like they're people, just don't weird them out, and they will appreciate you for it.
Right.
And that was the closest I came to weirding out. It was like, I'm going to hold my breath. Something's either I'm going to evaporate or he's going to evaporate. Like, this was not a moment that was supposed to happen, but it's actually happening. So, yay.
Yeah.
So anyway,
yeah.
we were standing, the girl and her friend behind us in line was that way about Jimmy Doohan. And when he came through, she was like, and he signed a thing for her, and she's like, "Can I give you a hug?" And he's like, "Well, of course, darling, you can." And I got a picture. I was like, there I could be, Uncle Larry for her. But when it's your person and all that, you're. But my whole time I was like, okay, too cool for school. Let's
right.
Let's be don't be the puddle person.
This is a totally normal moment in my life. This is my totally cool face.
You're looking very Bradward there, I must say.
Well, Larry, you know what? I would really love, not a 1-2, but I would love a K3 factor.
Yes, right, K3. So everybody,
let's do a deep dive.
If you look at the far, it's been a long time since I said it. The far left star in Orion's belt. No, the far left, the far left indicator there on the original series biobed monitor is called K3 factor. It was a brain function, so it was like the only neural thing we can find out of the original series. So this is K3 is my corner of the thing we do every week, where I deep dive with our theme. Rather than have a PhD, I just have a PhD. Or a TD. Anyway, whatever that would be. So the deep dive this week, if you can read the order.
Yeah, I can. I have them ordered by order.
Would start with the author that's attributed Hollow Pursuits is attributed to a woman named Sally Caves. And Sally Caves there on the left, that's her 80s, 90s persona. I found that picture. It dawned on me that I really want to track this woman. Sally Caves was her pen name.
Oh.
Her real name is Sarah Higley. She is a professor of English and English literature and like medieval languages, medieval English. She's created she's one of those people that created language even, and she's had it for whatever. And she teaches at University of Rochester. And just this last day or two, I'm like, how have I never interviewed her? I've got to track her down and ask her about Barclay and all this, because the second, which is cool, but and she also sold a story for she helped with Babel, which if you think about it, that's about words and language, which is interesting. But she's not she didn't, and writing is not her, screenwriting is not her career. She's a professor in those pursuits, But what was interesting was, and this was a third season show, so I didn't interview anybody in depth about it because I started with the companion Next Gen at 5th season and then onward. But looking back at what others had put together, it's kind of amazing because actually she had a story that she pitched. But the idea for somebody like Barclay, the other person that gets credit for this is in the couple of years before he died, is the second slide.
I think I know this person.
I
think I know this person.
None other than Gene himself, which is amazing to me because all the stories about Gene saying, Picard, should be people trying to humanize Picard and not having be the Shakespearean king on the throne. But that's exactly what Gene wanted him to be, and be the captain on the ship and send Riker down because it was silly for Kirk to lead landing parties all that time. And Patrick saying, I want to do some sex and shooting. That was their phrase. And every time, Captain's Holiday was like, Gene pushed back on that big time. And there were all kinds of things. He's like, no, Picard would never do that. He's my perfect captain, which is not great, Now, something like Best of Both Worlds. Okay, that's heroic. That's a cliffhanger moment. That's fine. But these little human things, he was very much against. But on the other hand, he didn't say, here's a guy, now go write a story about him. But he said, we really need somebody in the crew who's a bit of a screw up, who's not a perfect person, which is amazing to me considering. But I guess
Gene said this?
Yeah. But I guess he was protecting the leads. And so if you've got a one-off guest character who can be a little bit of a, not perfect out of the mold type person, but he was saying we should have somebody in the mix. We should have a guest star who's not the best. So when Sally Caves came along with this, she was a spec script that she didn't slide it to somebody at a con or something, but she found an agent who would take rookie writers' scripts, and her rookie agent got it into the show second season, and it stayed on the slush pile of all the turnover. And when Michael Piller was desperate at the beginning of third season, he was going through the slush pile trying to make sense of anything, even if it was like, okay, here's a line. take this idea and flesh it out. And he came across her script, and she came up with the term hollow addiction or holodiction. And I think I'm going to talk to her more about this at some point. But anyway, so Sally Caves is actually, and then everybody loved Barclay so much and loved Dwight Schultz, who got his job apparently through his friend Whoopi Goldberg after she got her job through her friend LeVar Burton. I mean, I say that. They go back to they go inside and say, hey, you know who'd really love to be on the show? So-and-so. And if it's halfway
Dwight Schultz from the A-Team.
From the A-Team, right. Helen Mad Murdoch. But if it's anyway halfway known, they're like, yes, in those days. We need all the attention and respect we can get. But the other thing, while we're on, that was kind of the Barclay backstory, which was kind of interesting. And it was a twist on, it made me want to talk to her. It made me want to, why she feels like she has to have a name, Sally Caves, for her Hollywood writing.
Right.
And not tarnish her professorial, Sarah Higley. But the fact that Gene had a turn there on it, and this was like the year or so before he died. He was just starting to have his mini strokes. But also a couple other things, especially on Realm of Fear, which we've come up to. So here's just a couple of fun things on the side. Do you have the So this is the episode where there's a scene in Realm of Fear where Barclay has to pull rank on O'Brien.
Yes, that's an order.
Yes. And O'Brien's like, oh my God. Okay. Well, this is the scene. This is the episode and the scene where Phase 2 Next Generation, I don't mean Phase 2 original series, the show that didn't happen. I mean the Maury Hurley early years, the revolving door merry-go-round of writers that Maury Hurley did the first 2 years, and then the Michael Piller onward. It's like sometimes there's a break there, and nobody was there both years. Anybody that survived later was not there from the first 2 years. And this is the moment when everybody realized that in the second season, in some show, Riker looked at that O'Brien, who didn't have a name yet. He didn't have a name yet, but he'd been in several times, and Riker just looks at him in the transport room and says, Lieutenant, do blah, 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 because they didn't have a name. And so he had 2 pips. He had lieutenant's pips. And they get to this point, and he's Chief O'Brien, and they pull the old original series and fan thing of confusing chief, like chief petty officer, chief rank, with chief, the position, like security chief or transporter chief or whatever.
Right.
And he'd been a transporter chief, but he was a lieutenant. Well, this is the point where they needed Barclay to outrank him and pull rank, and somebody goes, well, O'Brien's a lieutenant. What do you mean he's a lieutenant? He's a chief. They had this whole thing, and they're like, no. And then somebody said, just give him the non-com, the senior non-com pip, the one single dark pip that's never really been kind of mentioned. And what happens? The whole world goes, when did O'Brien get demoted? And I remember talking to Jerry about this, and she's like, okay, O'Brien was never supposed to be a lieutenant. That was just a thing that wardrobe, they just silly wardrobe. They established something and they kept it going until somebody says differently. And then the whole travail about what is he, and finally they get him a different. Anyway, but this is the show that exposed O'Brien's first big morphing rank pip thing. So anyway, that's a fun thing here. But the ending of Realm of Fear, speaking of O'Brien, is so Christina, his Lycosian tarantula, which is interesting because so that scene at the end, just as a goofy thing here because you never hear this, and yes, he's afraid of it, and then they do it for a joke reaction shot from him doing it. Anyway, O'Brien says, "This is my tarantula, Christina. I picked her up. I picked her up on some planet, but I was afraid of spiders." I was in a tunnel where I had to go save the day, and it was full of spiders on Zera 4.
That are a meter long, their legs.
Yes. Meter-long spiders. Take that, Indy. And, so he put himself through the ringer of his fear to get over it, right? And just as a side thing, I always laugh when I hear that because Zera 4 was named for Jerry Taylor's assistant for a couple years, Zara Cabot, who had a great alien-sounding name, and this is a picture. You never see her picture of her, so bang, this is my gift to everybody. This is especially like I zoned into a group picture just to show you.
Larry, I don't think I have this.
No, it's a girl standing upright. It's in the case.
I don't know if I have this one. Um, Keep talking, and let me double check.
Well, if I keep talking, I'm going to move on. But
Okay.
anyway, she was my big main memory of her, aside from a specific con trip that about
Oh, here it is. Okay, hold on. Give
this
me a
will be
minute.
like this will be like a big whoop after that build up.
Yeah, hold on. Here.
Yes. Hi, Zara.
Yeah.
Anyway, Zara was Jerry Taylor's assistant for a couple of years. Uh, yeah. Anyway, but one of the things I remember about her, everybody was doll. She'd say, "Oh, doll, can you blah blah blah, man or woman?" she. Okay. Anyway, so when you hear Zara 4, that's Zara.
Ah.
Yes, and she was only there a couple of years, but she had such a perfect alien name for a thing. But the last thing I want to get to is what is it? What's the other
Transporter,
picture?
the Realm of Fear.
Yeah. So Realm of Fear, the actual beasties that he's afraid of. Number one, that was a maquette that Dan Curry puppeteered. That's why it's like cut off at the edge of the frame there. Just as a little FYI, but it was a cool all that stuff they did with the point of view in the transporter, like the first time you ever saw a person.
Yeah, I was gonna comment on that. Yeah,
very cool. So here's the bottom line, though. I want to wrap all this up. So Sally Caves, Sarah Higley, when she came up with this idea, the whole inspiration, I'm sorry, the writers for, I just mixed two things. Forget Sally Caves. The writer for Realm of Fear, when they pitched that story, it was meant to, when he's in the transporter beam and he sees the maquette, he sees the little transporter beam, who actually are, they're humans and other humanoids that had been mucked up, and they look that way, right, in the beam. And they're able to reconstitute them, and yay, transporter saves the day again
by grabbing onto them in the transporter.
Yeah. And
you got to grab onto them and pull them back.
Talk about overcoming your fear. Ooh, yeah. Touch that worm. Okay. The whole thing of him being in a weird situation and seeing a monster and overcoming his fear was inspired by
dun, 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 dun.
20,000 feet. Yeah. The famous Shatner Twilight Zone episode, looking out on the wing, except this time and coming back and saying, "There's a thing in the beam," and everybody going, "Yeah, right."
I love that. I love that for many reasons, but there's
your case.
I love it because like transporter, airplane, Shatner, Dwight Schultz. There's so many great parallels there. That's really cool.
I just want to know something. Isn't Shatner's character in Airplane 2 named Murdoch?
He might be.
I think it is. Somebody will tell me. That just hit me.
Yeah.
And how the hell I pulled that one out of my posterior. Okay.
Out of your cells.
If I'm wrong, it'll make me feel much better. Okay.
Our comment section will let us know. That was great, Larry. There was a lot of K3s there.
I gave you some little ones, but I wanted to come back to the there at the end. Yeah.
I've got a quick away mission for us, and I was thinking, like, how do I summarize everything about Barclay into some kind of away mission? This is the part of the show where I give you something you can use and apply in your own life.
If you're like Barclay and any of his 57 diagnoses, here's what you can do:
find a Deanna Troi in your life, learn to plex. No,
even if you don't have Barclay diagnosis, find a Deanna Troi in your life.
Right. And we could all benefit from having more Deanna Trois in our life. No, I've got something for you all. This is the part of the show where I give you some take-home message that you can start applying to your own life. And to me, Larry, it's bookending Barclay's story. It's going back to Hollow Pursuits and then his arc in Star Trek Voyager. And the thing I want to leave people with in this away mission is to try and understand the function of behavior. When we first meet Barclay, he's being criticized for being lazy, for being late, for being unreliable. And sometimes people put those kind of labels on ourselves, sometimes people put those labels on us. Often we put those labels on ourselves. Like, why am I so lazy? What's wrong with me? But the thing I think really shines here with Barclay's story is the same thing I talk to people about all the time, which is like, what is this thing actually doing for you? Like, what's actually going on with you being late? What's actually going on with you spending all this time in the holodeck? What's actually going on with your fear of going into the transporter? Like, let's like dig. I think I've said this in a long time ago. Like, what's the thing below the thing? Like, what's the thing below Barclay being late? Is it his fear of being evaluated? Is it him spending so much time in the holodeck because that's the only place that he gets any relief from his anxiety? Let's try to understand what's the thing below the thing. And when we do that, when we really understand what the function of his behavior, like him being late is not about him being lazy. Like, lazy, there's no really research to support that laziness isn't even a thing. What we label as being lazy is usually something else. And once you understand that him being late is more about him trying to manage his anxiety, and he's not managing it well, or the way he's managing it is causing other problems. Once you understand that, then things make sense. It gets back to Nathaniel's question from earlier. Like, would knowing that his symptoms are being caused by this problem, would that change the way people interact with him and respond to him? And absolutely will. So the thing, if this is something that you are noticing in people in your life, or it's something you're doing to yourself, you're putting these very judgmental labels on what's actually happening, what I encourage you to do is something called a chain analysis. And what that means is like write down the problem behavior. Like, let's say it's showing up late to the cargo bay when Jordy is asking you to arrive. Okay, what happened right before that? Okay, well, I was running to the cargo bay. What happened right before that? Well, I was in the holodeck. Okay, what happened right before that? I couldn't fall asleep because I was having all these worries. And okay, so you went to the holodeck to try to manage your anxiety. You got some relief from that, and you're so exhausted, and it was the only time you're feeling good that you lost track of time, and that's why you're late. So your lateness is not about you being late and unreliable. It's actually about this thing. That's what a chain analysis is when you're looking at all the kind of sequences of things that led to whatever the problem is. And whenever we do that, Larry, we get a much better, more accurate, more honest depiction of what's actually going on. And Barclay is always someone who's revealing more about the challenges that we experience in a very human way. And I challenge everyone here to do the same thing for ourselves when we find ourselves struggling with some of the kind of things that Barclay does. So that's my away wish.
Yeah.
So,
kind of a retrace your steps.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once you do the chain analysis, you can also do a solution analysis, which is, okay, what would have been the best point to intervene and what could I have done differently? But this is something I do all the time in my life. I do this with other people, is let's understand the bigger picture of what's really going on. What's the thing below the thing? You know, what's the thing behind the thing? So that's my away mission.
Oh, good. Well, I'm all about big pictures. So, yeah. Yeah.
And I like little pictures, really small, teeny ones, like
my monitor today is kind of small.
yeah, things that you need a microscope to look at. So we've opened up the hailing frequencies.
Jeopardy categories. Okay.
Larry, so many wonderful comments from folks.
I know. Hey, listen, here's the thing about you and so I'm back a ways in the chat, so because I'm slow. So Galinda at one point at 10:55 said you and plexing. She said, I don't know in depth about plexing being ineffective, but as one who's pretty friendly with panic attacks, almost anything that brings you back to the here and now can be helpful in getting your control back.
Yeah, I've got a.
Then it almost makes me, despite your concerns, I can see a reason for it because it's like a sensory thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like snapping your...
You know, one of the things that's really helpful with panic attacks is getting plugged back into the present moment, and a lot of different things can do that for people. And if that's something that works for you, then that's amazing. Mental health is like complicated, and different things work for different people. So my problem with plexing was more the way it was presented and the rationale for it. But yeah, I'm revisiting a lot of that today.
Well, Jared says he in his job vaccinating people. You're talking about needle phobia, whatever. Jared says he had someone offer him $500 for blank vaccination cards.
Oh my gosh.
So did you bid him up or what?
Oh my god.
You got more than 500, I hope, Jared.
So I guess this is someone who didn't want
to fake their vaccine.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah.
They might have some great political, intellectual reason, but yeah, it was probably just they didn't want needles.
Yeah. Larry, a cool new feature in our app is I can search for comments. So as you mention these comments,
oh really?
I can search for them, find them, and put them on
in the Restream chat.
In our app
in
over
the
here.
Ecamm,
Yeah.
Ecamm?
Yeah.
See, I'm reading and reading.
So I love being able to find stuff from any time point. It's so cool.
Yeah, here's where I should have had these tallied up already, but I've
Tim says Barclay should make an appearance in Lower Decks season 2, having a conversation.
How has he not been there already? Yes.
Yeah, he absolutely 100% should be in Lower Decks.
It's the last time we see him in canon time is when he helps the finale of Voyager.
Yeah.
Which is whatever year, and they're 2379, so that's only a few years. That's only 5, 6, 7 years out of. He hasn't gotten old and decrepit yet.
A quick question from Scott. After the chain analysis, how do you then convince your boss who's digging in with attendance points that I don't know that you're human and things important to you outside of work? And Scott, that's a really great question, and I think it's a matter of how much and to what degree, and maybe to the nth degree, do you feel comfortable sharing with your boss whatever it is that's contributing to your attendance? And it depends on your context, depends on your work, depends on your situation, but at least with yourself, being honest about what's going on, and then as much as you can with people that you trust to share that as well. That's a good starting point. But it's a good question, and it kind of varies depending on everyone in the context they're in.
I made Galinda laugh big time. Safe for work terminology. I wish I knew what I did to make somebody laugh so badly. Okay, this is the only downside about being so out of sync with the chat time. So
at least your video and audio is not out of sync, which people were saying we are particularly in sync today, which is great. And soon, even though we're in sync right now, soon is going to be time to say bye, but that's not here yet. I gotcha.
Just in time, you did. Yes.
I did.
Yeah, well, all this talk about therapy, Scott pointed out that, and Galinda had a Bob Newhart, stop it, video story, and yes, Bob Newhart. Bob Newhart's first show is one of the great classics of TV, and I'm sorry, I will die on that hill. It's in the top 5 sitcoms, if not, I'd say top 3 sitcoms of all time. But anyway.
Jared,
here's the exciting part of the show where we're busy trying to look at.
I know. Jared says, "Of course you're in sync, 'cause it's gonna be May."
Notice how I'm not jumping in here for the in.
No, I'm actually I was a huge boy band fan in the 90s, and NSYNC they were my guys.
No wonder you were so insecure.
I wanted to be like them. I wanted to join them. I wanted to be part of the gang. Zahir says this conversation is going in one direction.
One direction, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, downhill.
Well, here's a very
Uh,
clinical. Where's this whole thing about what happens on the holodeck stays on the holodeck
yeah.
materially? Zahir says he just assumed the holodeck leftovers got dissolved by some kind of transporter technology. Well, yeah, that would be the very clinical. Yeah.
I would say, yeah, I think realistically, it's not what we see in lower decks. They don't save all the material. So if we have replication
Well,
technology,
you see, and somebody else mentioned that too. You see Mariner, one of the cruddy, job duties she's stuck with on her task list is cleaning out the holodeck, which
holodeck
is
waste, yeah, I'm pretty sure
well, you
when you
wouldn't just
leave the
beam it away.
holodeck,
Yeah.
everything just gets vaporized. It just gets sanitized.
But the modern vision of Star Trek is that we have little floating drones doing all this stuff. When I just used
Oh,
to think
right.
we use sensors and transporters to do. Why do
Yeah.
we even need drone? Now external repairs maybe, but the stuff inside, like people think there's like 23rd, 24th century versions of Roombas or something. It's like no, you have transporters and sensors, and you just clean what needs to be cleaned. But anyway.
Larry, our communities is cracking me up. Scott was saying, "Are we making a 98-degree turn here?" It's another boy band. If you're not aware,
Oh.
Larry,
Are
98
you?
degrees. They
We
were,
just
I would definitely say, lower tier. Hey, Karen mentions BTS. Karen, I'm a big BTS fan. My daughter loves BTS. They're
I've been in BTS since day one. I mean,
really?
I'm the tech manual. I
Oh,
did my star charting. I have been BTS for years and pioneered the hashtag. So and you know what's been heartening? Just on Twitter and Instagram, there are like, used to be it was no big deal, but the last 4 or 5 years, there are like hundreds of thousands of hashtags of BTS, and I think it's awesome that people are so into behind the scenes stuff, whether it's Star Trek or not. It's just another example of how savvy we are as. Wait, you're laughing at me. Am I missing something?
sure, sure. Yeah. The biggest band in the world is also very much into
Because
behind the
I noticed
scenes.
that when I hashtag things BTS, there's like thousands of views.
Oh man. Charlotte's saying, "What's BTS?" BTS is the number one K-pop band in the world. They're also the number one band in the world right now. They're kind of they're they originally they're the Bangtan Boys. I forget, but they kind of rebranded themselves as Beyond the Scene. Amazing
Beyond the scene. Yeah.
K-pop band. Check out some of their videos. They're really amazing. Um, Larry, did we? I think I had some comments flagged too that I wanted to bring up. Um,
Well, that's your problem. Okay.
Christina said, "I go on Star Trek timelines. It's more like a chat room with a lame mobile game attached." Um, people were sh-
Oh yeah, yeah, I saw that.
people were sharing a lot about kind of the games that they're into. Nathaniel says, "Ollie plexes. I'm drinking to that. Maybe we should add that to the drinking game here." Um, and Charlotte had a really great comment here. I really love Barclay's arc on Voyager. Specifically, there's a moment in the episode Pathfinder where he's talking to Deanna, and it struck me, oh, he's living with depression and anxiety. I think it's one of the only times in all of Star Trek there's an acknowledgement that you can't just cure these conditions. You can treat them, but like asthma, they can be conditions you have to live with. That really resonated with me as I'm still learning to live with these conditions myself. 100% Charlotte, and that's what I was trying to get at this idea of growth and setbacks. That especially with more chronic struggles that someone might have, sometimes you can have like a moment, an episodic struggle, if you will, with anxiety, and sometimes it's more of a lifelong journey. And Barclay is someone who shows us that view of that lifelong journey. So I absolutely agree with you, and I love that part of his story.
I think I vaguely remember when we were here. We weren't we doing our Scotty and McCoys and things and all that, but there's a lot of drinking on the drinking end going on, and Glenn at 11:10, Glenn said, "It's a good thing I only drink coffee on Saturday mornings. Otherwise, I'd be on the floor passed out." I think we had a, I think we had like a big, huge spike in the drinking game today. Like
there's
nothing,
a
nothing, 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 and then bang.
there was a moment where we were a bit fast and furious with those impressions.
No,
Absolutely.
don't. I know, I know.
I've
Uh,
tried. Cairo mentioned we can even escape
what's
into
his
the world
name?
of Star Trek with Star Trek Online nowadays. I definitely do that with the holodeck as well. And Cairo, we have the Star Trek Bridge Simulator VR game, which I've only played at conventions, but it's you can be in the world now. Um, Glinda asks, "Now I want to know where Ali goes to kill zombies." Um, I have a Nintendo Switch, and I love playing Mario Kart. I really love Mario Kart, and there's a few different games that I do play there. But honestly, Glinda, I haven't played much recently. My escape has been mostly TV and film. More recently, I used to be very much into The Walking Dead, and then I left like season 4 and 5 because I just realized every season's the same thing. It's just there's no change and there's no real hope. So I dropped that show.
That's my wife's objection to most all 1 hour drama on TV now. Like even if you
Mm,
like the chemistry of the actors and all of that, most after a season or two or three, it's just the same. I don't know what used to happen. Like things evolved. Even if it was like similar plots, it took 7 years for something to get old. But it's like, oh, it's even more. There's so micro. Part of it's the serialized, tighter storytelling, but it's like they finally get through a huge arc, and then you feel relief for a second, and then oh, now look, they're going to start a whole new long arc, and when they do
right,
that
right.
twice a year, you're kind of like you feel like you've had twice as much. It's like
Yeah,
the opposite of what Star Trek is doing with the and other shows do with the short seasons, I think. But it's interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
I agree, Larry. And um,
oh, I'm losing the chat. My gosh, this is weird. I'm losing the upper chat. Wow, has the chat really exploded this much?
Larry, are you
Sorry. I'm just
reacting?
talking to
Are,
myself
are
now.
you having another reaction to something from an hour ago? Oh my gosh.
Well, so Karen says the holodeck is a metaphor for technology on the internet. People are talking about escaping into games, like just like you were just talking about, or whatever. And Karen says holodeck is at 11:13. Holodeck is a metaphor for technology or the internet. But I don't even think maybe in 1987 that was a goal. But I think that kind of got grafted onto it after it got started. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like when Gene invented the transporter to avoid having to show miniatures landing on planetscapes. The whole metaphysical aspect of the holodeck, I don't think was part of what he had in mind. Are we dying or are we just that whole debate? I don't think that was a ripple effect, and the same thing with the holodeck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's cool about it is our meaning of the holodeck and the metaphor of it has changed as technology has changed, and what it meant in the late '80s, and with Star Trek the animated series with the idea of the rec room. It changed as our idea changes, and I think that's what makes science fiction so great is the meaning of it can change over time. Um, Glenn brings up Battlestar Galactica and how it set the bar for turning the drama up to 50 in science fiction shows, and it's only
Mhm.
recently that level of drama has started to come down to a less depressing level.
Sports.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. Like Ron Moore so wanted Battlestar to be everything that Star Trek was not, and to be able to do
Or
things
was restrained about.
or was restrained about. Yeah, yeah,
Set
yeah. That's a good
It's
way.
just the way they would do it. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially DS9. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to talk Battlestar Galactica. It's not the show we do, but I love Battlestar, and I think what sets Battlestar apart from things like Walking Dead is there was a beginning, middle, and end, and the show ended.
Mhm.
Um,
Not
I
not always the way people enjoyed, but it did end. Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So I was talking about being in the same school district for all 12 years and not moving
Hmm.
for good and bad. And Heidi mentioned at some point, and people were talking about it, that she went to the same school her whole life and had the same bullies for all 12.
Oh,
Yeah. So, heart on you. Heart on you there and getting some. Anyway, Nathaniel thought that our answer to that original question went deeper than he expected, so yay.
that's good. It's better than the alternative of it being way more surface level than anticipated.
You know what? Here's another thing. I just saw Charlotte mention this in a reply to Scott about labeling species. I want to go back through this at the end and see, but another future idea I thought about was, what about a topic some week about labeling? We were talking about, would people react to Barclay, Nathaniel, I think, would people have reacted differently to Barclay in the beginning if he'd had diagnoses instead of just being wacky behavior? And we all said, well, probably yes. But then the other end of that is, are you just a product of all your labels, and especially people in mental health field or other things. Ethnically, are you just a label? Or medically, are you a label? And I don't know if that would hold up for a whole topic of a show, but
think about it. When we often talk about these topics, for me, it's like, is there...
Take notes, everybody. This is our 10-minute late Friday or late Thursday night text session.
Yeah.
Only we're doing it on camera. Yeah.
The question for me is always, is there enough depth for us to have a...
Is there there?
Yeah, is there there? And like, what's great about Barclay is there's so many different episodes and the character gets to evolve. One of the challenges we run into with a lot more of DS9 and Voyager and the original series especially is when you see these characters as one-offs and then they're gone, if it's not with the principal cast, there might not be enough depth there. So yeah, I'll have to kind of think about that one.
Oh my God. The chat is so full today that I'm so far behind. I'm losing the clumps that I don't in Restream. Now I can go back and look, but here live, I can only go back so far. So yeah.
Yeah. Libby says in regards to labeling, yes, look at Rom and how he's labeled as stupid, as an idiot. And Libby's reminding me with the Ferengi, there's a lot of labeling at play. Maybe that should be an episode. Maybe we should talk about Ferengi.
Because it all comes out of, Jewish Borscht Belt humor. It's all somewhere between Henny Youngman and Don Rickles and all the comedians I grew up watching on Ed Sullivan on Sunday night.
I think there's
Thank you, Ira. Yeah.
I think there's something to do with the Ferengi as an episode. We should probably do a deep dive in there. I think there's a lot of... Yeah.
Libby's doing a happy dance right now just over that idea. I know.
Linda says, bring back the musicals. Linda, are you talking about like Larry and my musicals? I lose the context there. Yeah. Larry, speaking of losing context, maybe it's time. Oh, Melanie says, by your command.
By your command.
A lot of love for both the new and the original Battlestar series. It's wonderful stuff. And a great, amazing guest appearance by Nana Visitor on Battlestar Galactica. That was, if you remember that episode, Larry, she was fantastic in Battlestar Galactica. Okay, Larry, we are nearing the end of the show. So we need to thank our friends, Scott, as well as Jared, as the show. Yeah. Let's thank Scott and Jared for all they do. Scott for doing our podcast episodes, and Jared for...
which are now over the hump. We got them all up now, so now it's just one.
And also thank you to Jared, who does a lot of post-production on these episodes. And also to both of them for moderating our show, making sure that this is a nice, safe place. Larry, what do you got going on for us this week at Trekland?
Well, Trekland, this is kind of a quiet week. I've been kind of introspective. We've been working really hard on the Connor Rathma documentary finally. But yeah, all the normal stuff happens. 1 o'clock on Tuesdays, we have Trekland Tuesday Live over these same Trekland channels. Where you're watching me right now, you can catch Tuesday Live. We have a topic every week, and we have interactive chat like this. And then I do the show on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific. Oh, wait, that's this. And every Tuesday, the Trek Files is out. We're coming down to the end of our 6th season, which is kind of amazing. But I'm losing track of who the guest was this week. But I think it was Harrison Solo, who was Herb Solo's widow, who was. It was a May-December marriage when they got married, so she's outlived him far longer. But some more cool stuff about Majel and her 2 or 3 years when she was very close to the Roddenberrys, right about the time Gene died, and soon after that. And when she met Herb, because Herb critiqued her book on Gene Roddenberry and said a third of it was bullshit, and that's how she met her future husband. So it's kind of an interesting story. Anyway, all of that's going on at Trekland. Larry Nemecek on Twitter and LarryNemecek.com at the site. And just a quick reminder that we've got some things in the live support store. This is the coffee tumbler. Go check it out. And when we're live conning again, it'll be even cooler. But that's it for me. How about you?
Larry, we had a new episode of The Psych Show this week about... I don't know how relevant it is for anyone here, but it's about if you're interested in psychology as a high schooler, what to do. Next week, I've got a great video coming about how to move back into society and how to get back to work and back to school as things are starting to open up in some parts of the world. So stay tuned for that episode on The Psych Show over on YouTube. Of course, I'm always at Ollie Matu on social media. And we'll be back next week for another fun episode of Life Support Live. Let us know what you'd like us to tackle next week. And until then, my friends, live long and prosper.
Hey, everybody. Trek well.
Do 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 do. Do do.